TV SchmeeVee.
That's right.
Oh, shit.
Episode 229.
229.
Hola.
I like that you started the episode just by saying TV SchmeeVee.
What's good that you hear that and not movie schmovie because
Yes.
it's like it's a special episode.
Right.
And you come here thinking, oh, I got the new movie schmovie episode. Then you immediately
the hell
hear,
TV SchmeeVee.
you realize, oh, this is a special thing right now. Ronald's an octave higher, and they're not saying movie schmovie. So
Aha.
We're doing some
How's
TV.
everybody doing?
I'm doing fine.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. All right. Everybody, one octave up. Let's go.
Hey, guys.
Whole episode. Somebody's gonna be like, am I listening to this like 2 times fast? I need to dial this back.
2 times. Yeah.
Well, one thing's for sure is I'm John.
I'm Ron.
And that's not very sure. It doesn't sound.
He thinks.
That's
One thing's
true.
likely.
The caffeine's draining.
You're probably Ron.
The highs are so high, but the lows are so low when it comes to caffeine.
Yeah.
It's like, ugh, why'd I do this to myself? Who are you?
I'm Steve.
All right.
So was that outburst of TV SchmeeVee? Was that was it? That was the
That
peak
was
of
him just
energy.
blowing it off.
It's a
Yeah.
slow decline from here.
That's the height of my energy, and it's all downhill from now.
But yes, it's TV SchmeeVee, which is the what we call an episode of Movie Schmovie, where we change our focus from movies to television. If you think about it, it tracks, it checks out. It's been a while. I think the last TV SchmeeVee episode we did may have been the best shows of 2017 that we did early in the year. So
Cool.
So it's been a while. I don't know. I guess we do talk about television along the way when we're talking about movies. But I had wanted to ask you guys, there seems to be this back and forth, a little teeter-totter between, like, are movies the best or is television the best? And a few years ago, I was feeling like the best stuff that was being made was on television and that movies were kind of losing a little bit of ground in terms of the stories that I was really drawn to and that I really loved. I think in 2018, I kind of felt a fatigue with prestige television. There's so many things to watch that it really became impossible that then you start looking at a 10-hour commitment for a story or a 12-hour commitment to view a season of a show. And it was the first year that it started to seem to me like, I don't know that all these shows that are getting 10 or 12 hours, I don't know that shows need to be that long. Like maybe something that could be done in 4 episodes or 6 episodes is being done in 13. And I think that that's adding to the sort of just the sense of investment and commitment you have to say, I'm going to see this story through to the end, let alone 10 hours for a season. Then you're watching one season of 4 or 5. So when a new show comes out that you like and you sign on and you watch one episode and you like it and you say, okay, now I'm signing on for waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting with this thing. I don't know. How did you guys feel? Do you know at all what I mean? That feeling that like this year it was almost impossible to feel like you were keeping up, but also do you ever get that feeling of not being satisfied when you know they're going to draw the story out as much as they can?
Oh, yeah.
I don't really identify as much with the latter.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I guess I don't really think about that too much because if I start to feel that as I'm going through it, sure.
You don't look at a show and go, "Oh boy, 10 hours."
right. I don't. From jump, I don't. But but I do kind of feel like it has. I have experienced more so this year, or in 2018, that I find myself like kind of cherry picking the shows that I feel like I think have the biggest chance to succeed with me, or that spike my interest the most. Or of especially things that you're hearing everybody saying are like these are the best shows. Like like I would love to watch all of them eventually, but like you're saying, like time is limited, and I still want to go to the movies a lot. And I have 18-month-old. It's like I'll watch what I think I'm going to enjoy the most based off of what I know about it, or based off the marketing or the source material or those involved. So I mean, I do feel like there's been a little bit more of like a pre-qualify or something. I don't know. Like I've been trying to do like what interests me. And, for the most part, though, I feel like I liked a lot of TV this year.
Yeah.
There's a few standouts like that I'll bring up on the show tonight that really stood out to me. And that kind of, in some ways, were kind of spread across the year, which was kind of nice for me. And one thing I did do is I tried not to mention shows that I've mentioned before.
Yeah, that's what I tried to do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Good. You guys are going to help me because I've got the most basic
Okay, good.
repeat offender list that anyone's ever had.
Because I had 2 on the list. I was like, I just talked about these last year, so I'm not going to do it again.
I specifically got ones that started in 2018.
Okay.
Just so I could do that. Yeah.
So that's cool. Like, because I mean, shows came back that I loved, like that like I love Netflix's American Vandal season 2 and Big Mouth and Good Place. There's so many good like comedies on TV that I think are just still pretty strong. But I really tried to focus on, like Ronald said, shows that premiered in 2018 or new versions of shows or anthologies or whatever. That's a new story. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about the ones that I have.
What about you, Ronald? Movies versus TV? Do you see them as competing with each other for your time, or do you see it all as just time spent watching whatever it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's starting to happen is the shift to since more shows are starting to become more prestige and stuff like that. It's the golden age. I've noticed that the commercials for the TV shows are almost starting to feel the way that it felt with the Oscar-nominated movies, where they play the orchestrated music for those movies. That's now becoming the TV shows. That's now becoming nominated for that. I never saw that for TV shows, and it's starting to become a bigger thing. But I would rather a UK 4 than a US 10. But if it's a good enough show, I'll absolutely watch the 10. Yeah. It just really depends on how good it is.
See, I don't know, maybe I'm older than you guys, so maybe I'm like thinking of my time left on Earth a little differently. Maybe something happens in your mid-40s where you're like, 12 out? I don't know if I'm interested enough in that. And then there's things where I am very interested, and then I watch a couple episodes, and it's hard for me to keep up. And I don't know, I wouldn't want to spoil anything that was on anyone's list, but there are shows this year that I watched 1 or 2 episodes of that I thought were great, but I didn't watch enough of them to believe that I could speak to the whole season or everything that came out this year. Yeah. So for me, I feel like this is the same thing that's happened with my music consumption on certain years, which is the albums I'm buying. I look and I realize these are all albums by people that I've been listening to for 20 years, or people on their 5th or 6th album, and it's like that's what I'm most excited about. But it's like I don't. That's not to say that there's not new stuff that I should be seeking. It's just sometimes I feel like I'm more hunkered down with things I already knew were great, and sometimes I think I'm like, no, I got to see something new. I got to see something new. But I felt like I had to complete a season in order to put a show on my list, and there were a lot of shows I did not complete this year. So that's why my list feels somewhat repetitive. But I also tried to focus on a particular episode. And I think that is something that really great shows can do, is maybe they've got a pretty darn good season, but there'll be an episode that just knocks your socks off. And you can only do that with this sort of long-form serialized television storytelling where you have years to get to know a character. That's one way that movies still can't do what a television show can do, which is give you that sense of, oh, for 2 years I've liked this character and they just did something unforgivable. A movie can't create that sense of betrayal or excitement or whatever. So
cool.
So I don't know. Who wants to get it started? Maybe since I've got the most basic list of all, I'll be the guy.
Okay.
To get it started.
Guy.
Yeah. I did specifically. I when I thought about the shows that I watched this year that I really loved and the ones that stuck with me, I did say, okay, since I am being repetitive, I'll at least do myself the service of trying to think of what was the moment, what was the actual experience that cinched it for this show this year. And I think it was on my list last year, Atlanta. Or did Atlanta... It skipped a year, so maybe it wasn't on my list last year. It would have been the year before.
It did skip... These
shows skipping years.
It did.
Okay.
We're back in a year where we get new Game of Thrones and new Stranger Things, though. So I don't know if new Atlanta's coming this year. But the episode of Atlanta where Paperboy is trying to get a haircut...
Oh... So good.
It's one of the funniest things I saw all year, period.
You want some Zaxby's?
Oh, God. What was his name? Bibby? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Oh, so perfect. And like such a great acting showcase in the sense of that. I don't even know who that was that played Bibby, but he was.
He's a comedian. I forget his name, man. That guy's so funny.
But Brian Tyree Henry, who we've said before, is on a roll. Like he is so great. His slow burn expressions in that episode. That I think the episode was just called Barbershop. Let me actually look and see. I think it was a really good episode. Yeah. Midway into the season. Let me just eyeball that real quick. Yeah, it was this 5th episode of an 11-episode season. So it was right there in the middle, right where you do those kind of experimental kind of bottle episode where you break off one character. And this show, I felt like the second season was a lot of that. You didn't get the whole ensemble together quite as much as you did the first time, which can be a real drawback, but you end up with these great standalone episodes. And the episode that followed this one was the Teddy Perkins episode, which was another one that had that era of like, let's take a character and throw him into a situation.
Yeah.
But that situation in the barbershop episode, just the way it kept getting more and more elaborate, and everything that Bibby was up to.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't watch the show, it's basically a guy who's got a photo shoot. He's a hip hop guy, and he's got a photo shoot, and he wants to look nice, so he goes to his regular guy, and he needs a haircut. This guy who knows how to cut his hair, and the guy just keeps putting him off and saying, well, I can't cut it because I've got this thing to deal with, but if you come with me, I'll cut it back at my house. And it just keeps becoming everything and Bibby is the guy who's cutting his hair. Everything that Bibby is up to is so shady and sketchy, and it's just so funny that you would do that to somebody and you would put them through that. Oh, God. I watched it again when I was thinking about this list. Yeah, it's just hilarious. It's great. I mean, the season did other things that were heavier and more interesting in some ways if you're looking at what Donald Glover is trying to do with the structure of the show. But that one just stood out to me as like, okay, if I'm going to repeat a show that's been on my list before, if I'm going to be that easy to read, I should at least say it's because of an episode like this, which I really think Donald Glover, what he's set up with this show is a world where he can do almost anything. I mean, he's gotten pretty crazy with individual episodes and individual gags.
Yeah. And
that was present in the first season. And I felt like the confidence of seeing that success and going forward. The second season is just so interesting and I don't know, such a step forward creatively in so many ways. There's something kind of serious and almost depressing to me about stuff that Donald Glover makes. Like, I feel like that guy's got so much.
There's like an underlying.
There's like a heaviness to his thoughts, and there's a lot going on with that guy. But the fact that he knows how to create those comic situations, you know, and I don't know, it's such a fascinating show to me, and I love the production value of it. I love the way it's made, love the way it's shot, and the performances are almost always across the board great. Who was it that was so great? It was Cat Williams. Was also really good in the first episode of the season. That's another one that you could just about say, just watch this one episode, and it contains volumes.
The first 10 minutes of that episode, unreal. The robbery and what looks like a McDonald's, I guess, and when the guy gets shot at and you think he's dead and he gets back up and he runs outside, it's a crazy show, man.
Yeah, there's a chaoticness to that show. It's got a surreal quality, but it feels like it's a surreal quality that's drawn from life, not from just somebody spinning wheels in their head. Like, it feels like it's the kind of crazy shit that can happen in a neighborhood, you know?
It also feels really important. Like, I can't figure out. Obviously, representation, the first thing I think about, but something about it just feels really important. Just that the fact that, like, you can make a thing that dips in and out of reality the way that it does.
But life does that.
Yeah.
And especially if you've got kind of a grind to your life or a repetitiveness to your life, it is punctuated by these moments of, did I really see that? Yeah. Did that really happen? And I feel like Donald Glover understands the humor and the kind of pathos of that, you know.
Yeah. It's a great show.
No, what a great show.
I guess I'll go next. Is that cool, Steve?
Sure.
Steve.
This show isn't rated very well on the Metacritic score and Rotten Tomatoes, but this show, it gives me a lot of feels. It's called I Feel Bad, with Sarayu Rao Blue, Indian American actress. It's basically about her family with interracial kids and living in this way. It's a comedy that just kind of deals with her day to day. It's almost framed like Blackish, the way that she has a conflict. She goes to her job. She's a head of a division that makes video games, and she talks to her coworkers about a problem, and they kind of give her terrible advice. Yeah. It's the opposite of Blackish. They give her terrible advice, and then she just kind of deals with it. Sometimes they give good advice, but it's done really well. Although it's framed the way that Blackish is pretty unique because she's Indian American. She has very specifically Indian things. Like, she lives with her parents, and her parents are nuts, but very nice and kind of grounded. You spend most of the time with her parents and the kids, and seeing her navigate through this world as a hardworking, beautiful, fashionable parent, trying to maintain her home. It's just really well done, man. And it feels like the show that I never thought that I needed, that I could just keep on. Like, Aaron and I'll just turn it on during the day and watch it. Well, it's just a fun show, and it doesn't need to be anything more than that. And it has a lot of cool messages about understanding and cross cultures and what it means to be an Indian American or minority in the world.
Is that the show that's produced by Amy Poehler?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did you already mention that?
No, I should.
Oh no, I was just thinking because
Yeah.
I had that in my head. Is like I know I've seen ads for this, and I finally realized which show it is that you're talking about. It
it's
looked
just
really funny.
Really funny, man. Like, and a lot of it isn't like all laugh out loud. It's circumstantial, and some of that stuff can be really funny. And every time we watch the show, my girlfriend found something that this woman wears that she wants. I actually bought her a Christmas gift based on this whole concept. But yeah, I Feel Bad, led by this great actress.
And what is that on?
Oh, I think NBC.
Okay.
I think it's on NBC.
God, I lose track of that.
Yeah,
That's one thing
so
it's
much.
hard for me to tell sometimes.
Hulu
Like,
makes it
what
worse.
channel is that on? Yeah.
It's meshed into this list of things, and then it shows you the header at the beginning, but you can easily just walk away, come back, and like, oh, what? I guess it is on that network. So
Yeah.
I Feel Bad. I really like it.
So my first pick is a movie or TV series I watched towards the end of the year. It's an Amazon series based on a hit podcast from a few years ago called Homecoming.
Yeah.
So the podcast was great. Like Catherine Keener, Oscar Isaac, David Schwimmer, David Cross. Like, very awesome production. Like, cool story.
It's voice acting.
The podcast. This is the series that Amazon made based off the podcast.
I didn't know anything.
So the series on Amazon came out in November. Stars Julia Roberts, Stephen James, Alex Kaporsky, Shea Wingham, Bobby Cannavale, Frankie Shaw. Awesome cast. Loved the show. Aaron and I watched it in like 3 days. The amazing thing about it, and I think it is really cool because Sam Esmail, the guy who created it and kind of brought it to the network, he did like Mr. Robot, so he's like has kind of like, I guess, some like this track record of like a bit like challenging drama. There's a bit of a technology angle to it, but not really technology, more like science. But it's really cool how it plays against it. But basically, Julia Roberts plays this character at a center for helping war veterans that are coming back from war, like kind of acclimate back to like daily life. Like they're opting into this program to like kind of help them be prepared to go get a job and to go back into their homes and their families and everything. But to not spoil anything, like if that sounds interesting at all, it's a drama, it's a thriller in some ways, but really great cast. I have always and still do love Julia Roberts. Like she's one of my top favorite actresses ever, and she's great in this. And I love Stephen James. Like I loved him in Beale Street. I've loved him in most movies I've seen him in, even if I didn't love the movie. But seeing Beale Street and then seeing this, like it just like I love this dude. I want to see more from him. And it does this really great thing where it's kind of told in two timelines that kind of eventually there's a that merge point. Like those movies and TV series that kind of happen in two different timelines. Some of them really kind of do it really well, like where the editing really works out nicely and there's something creatively that's decided to kind of help you differentiate from what's in the past and what's in the present, and also maybe what's in the future. But the big thing I would say, anybody that's interested, that sounds like it's interested in it, it's 10 episodes, and they're only half an hour an episode.
See, I love that.
So pacing is quick. It's a thriller / drama. It's interesting. Great cast. Great performances all around. It got nominated for a bunch of Golden Globes. But yeah, we'd like watch it in a couple of days, and I loved it. And I think it in terms of just ending, it just ends so well.
The whole show or each episode?
All of them, but the show, I'm saying. I feel like from start to finish, all the episodes are really strong, and I think it benefits from the 30-hour format, and they kind of kept
30-minute
format. 30-minute format.
30 hour. Each episode is just 30 hours.
30-minute format, which they kept from the podcast format, which is what the podcast was.
That's really cool.
Which was a creative decision.
See, but that is exactly what I was talking about before when I was talking about prestige fatigue. The fact that you can do a show like that and it can be a half hour, That to me makes it more interesting.
It does.
Because you know the rhythms. Like that to me is enough to say they're doing something a little different than the other people that might have done that same stuff, and just assume it's a drama, so therefore it has to be an hour. 30-minute dramas are not as for whatever
really
reason.
much of a thing.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. I really, really enjoyed the series, and it just felt fresh because of that from seeing Julia Roberts on the TV series.
And you don't know, but what's crazy about that is big, but you almost don't blink. Like people do television now that you wouldn't believe.
I know.
It doesn't even seem strange. It's kind of like, oh, good, she got herself a television show. That's what everybody's doing now.
And she's like, I mean, obviously, but she's a part of like the old school.
She's a real star.
The elite stardom.
I will never do TV sort of person. I don't think she would ever say that.
Said that.
Yeah.
Right.
But the generation that used to say things.
No,
like
that era where if you did television and you had been in movies, it meant something went wrong. You know?
Right. Exactly.
I'm so glad that that's gone.
Oh yeah, man.
God, I'm so glad that that's gone. Cool.
Okay, well, I'll go back to my super predictable choice. This one will be no surprise to anyone because if you know me, you might know that I do a podcast about this show. But Better Call Saul had a great year, but more so than just having a great year, the last episode of the season, which was called Winter, it had the slow burn storytelling on that show does necessitate that certain episodes are a lot more eventful than others. And they will spend like weeks building something up and then paying it off in a way that you might say, well, that was predictable, but you also might experience great satisfaction. When Jimmy McGill on Better Call Saul makes a choice that's a bad choice, I feel disappointed in him like he's someone I know. It's like, how many times can a character break your heart before you stop believing he's a good guy? I think Bob Odenkirk's performance is amazingly humanistic. That show's full of great performances. But the way that season ended was such a satisfying kind of gut punch. I'm not like waiting for the moment when it's just like Breaking Bad, but it feels like they're more poised now than ever to jump into, he's going to be wearing loud suits and he's going to be making these ads. And it's like, it will have such an undercurrent of a real human being to it that it didn't need before when he was just a secondary character. But they've done something amazing with that character on that show. And I also want to call out one other aspect of this episode is the opening scene. They do flashbacks frequently on this show, so a character can die and still come back. The flashback to Chuck McGill, played by Michael McKean, and Jimmy McGill singing an ABBA song in karaoke together, and then going back and kind of drunkenly crashing at Jimmy's place. It was these two characters we've never really seen them get along. And they did the gut punch. I mean, the heartbreaking thing of showing us the moment where maybe they were at their most, like Jimmy had passed the bar, I guess, and Chuck was happy for him and maybe even a little proud of his little brother, who he's never been happy for and never been proud for. And we know that. We know that their story ends in a sad way. Chuck dies and they had awful things to say to each other before that. So going back and showing this little moment where it's like they're kind of acting like brothers should act. They're kind of acting like friends. It was so it was so painful and so beautiful, and Michael McKean got to actually sing, which he can do. But it's totally set up that idea that in that same episode you were going to see Jimmy, you were going to see him steer away from that person that his brother wanted him to be. So yeah, I think it's just a really great show, and I'll just repeat what I said about you feel like you know these people. You spend a lot of time. It can be a slow show, but when they make a leap, it's got power because you've spent time with the process and watching every step of something. So, so yeah, still probably one of my favorite shows that I've ever watched, and definitely one of the best shows I watched last year. Even if I think I've said that before a couple times.
I need to finish that season. I'm like halfway through. I was really enjoying it. I don't know what. It's just so much.
Well, probably
TV.
because of the prestige television glut.
So much TV.
Do you think you guys are more likely to be excited about a show that you can binge or a show that you watch week to week, or do you think it matters for your investment?
I like week to week. I still like week to week, and I don't mind binging either. But I like.
Yeah, both mine, Atlanta and Better Call Saul, were shows that I watched week to week, and I feel like I get something out of that time to mull it over. But it does sometimes piss me off that I have to wait.
I would probably lean towards streaming. I like the.
Would you ever wait on a show that was week to week so that you could binge it?
If I fell behind, yes, for sure. The one week to week show that I have on my list, it kind of happened where I kind of fell behind and then I just waited and then finished it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Since I mentioned it, I will just say the podcast I mentioned that I do about Better Call Saul is called Saul Searching. And if you want to hear that, just go to iTunes and search for FYIZ. That's the name of the network/feed that has that podcast on it.
Cool.
So all those episodes of Saul Searching and other podcasts that I do. But that's a show where I do everything I said before is in full display, where it's like that's a slow-moving show where they might do 6 seasons of it. I think they might end with 5. But like knowing that you're locked in for something that is not going to pay off for a long time.
Yeah.
That show, more than any other, really makes you wait for those payoffs. And the fact that they're usually very satisfying and that the filmmaking and the acting is at such a high level makes it worth the wait.
It's a good show. Oh, it's my turn.
I think it is.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge,
yes.
who is in Fleabag, executive produced a miniseries, women-led, fucking amazing.
Didn't she write
Sandra
some of that too?
Oh, some of it.
Yeah.
But, they don't credit. It's weird the way that they credit her.
Yeah.
Jodie Comer.
Yeah.
Killing Eve, man.
Yeah. See, that's one that I watched an episode of and loved, but didn't pick it
I
back up.
haven't watched it, but it's like on the list of like.
It holds up. Like they're all as good as the first.
Yeah, man. It combines tension.
Spoiler free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Wait, he said it combines tension.
Oh, fuck.
I didn't know that.
All right, it's off the list.
Don't tell me
I
what it
thought was a
combines tension
comedy.
with,
Oh,
or
yeah.
you've ruined the whole show. No, it combines tension and what?
I've never seen a. How you see shows about a detective chasing a person, and they do a thing where there's chemistry between the two people, and it feels like okay, there's hints of it. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever seen something where the chemistry feels so real, so visceral between two people, and borders on, obsession in a way that I've never seen presented. And Sandra Oh, I don't think I've ever seen her in anything like this. It's presented in a way that just is so different than anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, first and foremost, Asian women as leads just should happen more often. Minorities as leads, but Asian women, Asian men, just used as these amazingly strong symbols isn't a thing you see very often. Somebody portrayed as this fully realized person with feelings and insecurities in this relationship, investigating a killer. And as the information unravels and the paths that cross between these people, it is insane. Mm-hmm. It's done so well.
Oh man, you just reminded me of how much I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
tone.
What platform is that on?
Oh, don't get me the
it
line,
Netflix?
man. It might be on Netflix.
it
I'm
is.
not sure. I saw it as it was airing because
Okay.
I saw this article that was just like you have to see this show right now.
Well, you're talking about the sort of diversity and inclusion aspect of it. I think a huge part of what you just said too, that might be part of why it has this different tone and why it feels so essential, is that it's not just female led. Mm-hmm. It's like behind the camera, female talent as well. It's that aspect of like someone telling the story. Like it's not just a story that's not normally told, featuring people that you don't normally see, but like when it's behind the camera too. When I think that's the thing. Like representation, casting people is one piece of it, but actually having the stories being told by the people that might relate to the experience of the characters.
Right.
Because like if every movie has like a really diverse cast, but it's still middle-aged white guys making it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's good, but it kind of makes you go, oh, well, is that really progress? So a show like this, the fact that it's a Phoebe Waller-Bridge she's sort of the auteur behind this project. Mm-hmm. I think that does add to
there's a lot of
that
nuance.
quality that you're talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance. Like I feel like if a man wrote this show, there'd be interactions where they're supposed to be tension, the guy would just say something ridiculous, and this is just subtle. It's like adjusting someone's hair is the difference between.
But the relationship between the two women, it might even be presented in a kind of leering way if it were men making it. I don't know. I just think that might be a component that makes something, because it does have a different tone. It's like you've seen stories like this before, but there's something about this that feels like it's a little bit more intimate and a little bit more willing to go into the emotions and less obsessed with the sort of prurient sort of crime part of it, I mean, it's that thing of it's a different perspective. So no, I'm glad that it holds up. How many episodes was it?
6.
Yeah, that's
6, really good show. I know that it's on Amazon. I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon. That thing.
It's Hulu.
Hulu.
It's Hulu.
Jesus Christ.
So we went through 3. We hit the third one. Yeah,
Hulu.
it's on Hulu.
Huh. Okay. Hulu.
Huh.
Huh.
There it is.
Really good show. Like you haven't seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like it, you haven't seen it. It's so fucking good to me though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, really
2 women-led things, man.
You're
I'm on a roll.
Yeah.
That's it.
I didn't want to stop your roll, dude.
Message. You need to do more things with women, man.
Yeah.
That's all.
My next pick is the second season of Ryan Murphy's American Crime Story.
Mm-hmm.
This is the assassination of Gianni Versace. This is the one I was saying I kind of fell behind a little bit, and then I kind of waited and watched it all in one sitting. Darren Criss is incredible in the show as Andrew Cunanan.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting decision on how the show kind of just like plays out, like because it basically starts with the assassination. That's not like a spoiler; it's in the marketing for it, and kind of tells a story sort of in reverse, kind of going through what leads to the inevitable moment when that happens, and it builds like a mystery around it, even though it's the situation like with these factual things or these real life events where what happens, but it does that thing just like it did in season 1 of the the O.J. Simpson story, like where it builds the tension, it builds the character development to a point that like whether or not you really you care about the villain of the series in a way, like you're wanting to know what happened or how he got to the point that he was in, and it also sheds light on things that I never knew about the story, about like the men that were killed in his path to Gianni Versace, which I never was aware of, and the characters that he meets along the way that had an impact on who he was, and those characters that were victims. Some of that work by Cody Fern and Finn Whitrock, like just really good stuff, like really emotional, like it really got me kind of moments. I just thought it was so kind of out there, kind of bold, a real like kind of chance in how the story was told. And obviously, it's got a lot of that like 80s, 90s pulp to it that gets me. But I loved it. I thought it was incredible, and I thought Darren Criss just was like, there's a sequence in the show that it's probably like it's been on like it's a meme, like where he's like dancing in like a penthouse suite of a hotel or some rich mansion, and it involves like him duct taping this guy's face up that he's like kind of sort of like selling sex to, sort of, or not. It's like one of the most uncomfortable things to watch, but it's also one of the most amazing like sequences I saw on TV this year, and that it was on like a network TV or cable network TV, because I think it's on FX. I just loved it. I don't know. I loved the OJ season, and I love this one. I might have even liked it more because I didn't know much more about this besides the fact that he killed Gianni Versace. And there's also a lot of stuff in there about Versace as well, and like how homosexuality was dealt with in the 90s, and like the phobia, and like how it affected him and his brand, and him and his relationship with his sister. And Penelope Cruz plays his sister Donatella, and just a great cast, man. Ricky Martin is in there, who's actually really good in the series as Johnny's partner, longtime assistant, lover. I don't know. I loved it. It's one of the ones like I feel like I found myself recommending to a lot of people, especially like if you liked Crime Story American Crime Story season 1. Because I don't know, I like what Ryan Murphy's doing with that anthology format for that series, because it's like there's such a success in telling these stories, like I said, that the ending, but take me back to the beginning and fill in the stuff that most people don't know. And there was so much I had no clue about that character, and deciding to focus the majority of the series on this murderer is a bold decision, and I think it pays off huge for the show. And I don't know. I thought it was
in a way, that's the real story.
It is.
Of that. I mean, obviously, Gianni Versace is a very famous victim, and there's story to be told there. But that idea that like a murderer is sort of a reflection of the times that they're in, and that you can look at the way they operate and the way the things they used to manipulate people and stuff, and the attitudes towards homosexuality in that period played into Andrew
yeah.
Cunanan's like development as a human, and I didn't watch the show, but I know what you mean about the story. It's like at the time it was like a footnote to the story that there were these other people that he had encountered, and but because it seemed like Johnny Versace was the story. So to pull it back and say, no, look at this trajectory of this guy who went from a troubled guy to something much worse, and why did he do it, and what was the transformation about? No, that's an interesting approach. Ryan Murphy seems to have. It's funny that he's got these multifaceted ways of approaching television. He makes these shows that feel like they're designed to be seen as kind of trashy and fun and disposable, and then he goes and does these other shows that are like the American Crime Story and I think The Feud, where it's like
he did Pose. I haven't seen that, but I heard
Pose
that
is
was really good.
Oh, does that count? When did that come out?
2018.
Oh, I didn't.
That was in the fall.
Fuck.
You missed one, Ronald.
I forgot. For some reason, I thought that came out in 2017. That show is incredible, but it's
really
also
good
like
things about it.
you really gotta.
You had to make room for Fuller House. Beep boop bop. We had a technical difficulty. We were talking about the Versace season, or the Andrew Cunanan season of American Crime Story, and we were in the midst of that, and we kept talking, but my computer did not keep recording.
As they do sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
So we're going to try to painstakingly recreate the 15 or so minutes that we completely lost.
Oh man.
We're going to go back through each syllable. It's got to be in place, just like it was before. No, but you were talking about that show, and I can't remember if you had any further thoughts after your kind of initial salvo of thoughts about it. We were just talking about the choices that Ryan Murphy makes with these types of adaptations that he does, and he's got his finger in a lot of pies. It seems, a lot of different crazy shows. What is it about the American Crime Story shows that kind of set him apart, you think, from his other work?
Man, I'm not really sure. I mean, like, he touches on other series where he's dealing with like real life stories, Feud or Pose. Like, these are things that are, at least some part of the story is based in history, or something that happened. But I don't know. I think it's just choosing the right stories, like doing OJ, doing this, and I mean, I think the next one may be a story like Katrina related, and they may even have like rumored for like a 4th season. Just picking the right stories that people know enough about, but not everything about, or that there's other information that could reframe the story as you learn more of it, which is something that I think happened with this story for me personally, and maybe could be interesting to see what they do with the Katrina story if that comes to be the next season.
Yeah,
but I don't know. He's got so much going on, and he's got this Netflix deal, and it's like. He's got a voice, and he knows how to make people listen to it, and he works with a lot of interesting actors and actresses, and they seem to really like working with him because they kind of cross over a lot of his series. So I mean, I'm excited to see what he's doing next, and would highly recommend the Versace season of American Crime Story for sure.
And Katrina is supposed to be this year.
Supposed to be this year, I think. I mean, I think it was supposed to be this.
Yeah, they announced it as the 2nd season.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, hopefully it comes out this year, because I'd be curious to see his take on that, or what angle they'd go at for that.
I wonder if there's going to be. That almost feels like a hot, like maybe there's the time it takes to treat that subject with some sensitivity too, because that does kind of feel like a story that could. I mean, it's racially charged, like so was the OJ situation, but the Katrina thing is much deeper and has many more moving pieces in it.
It's like conspiracy on a weird level. And
right.
You got to do the work, and I think that Ryan understands that. I feel like he does, especially after the reaction to OJ. Probably took out some time to figure it out.
It's just interesting to me that he has this kind of more serious-minded approach that he can take to these certain things that are different from, say, like Scream Queens or even American Horror Story, that definitely are built on a sort of schlocky framework of being like pushing the boundaries of what you can get away with showing on television. And then he does these other things that are these highly respected sort of all-star true crime things. Well, all right. It's not as exciting rounding into my final pick now for the 2nd time, but since this is take 2 of me talking about this, I'll try to create the same kind of mystery in you guys' mind. What's John about to say? Is it going to be the same thing he chose before? I have no idea. But I had as my favorite show of the year, I guess, my number 1 on this list anyway, as the house. House, what do you call it? I was confusing with House American. the house that fear built or something. I don't know what I was about to say. But The Haunting of Hill House, which is, we've talked about him, but Mike Flanagan, who is a horror director who just really has a knack for making the most of the budget that he's got and the scenario that he's got. He had this bigger canvas to paint on, and Haunting of Hill House, it does the thing that the great horror films do. You were saying in take one of this conversation, you mentioned that Jason Blum said that thing about that the human drama is always going to deepen the horror. And when I saw Haunting of Hill House, and then shortly after that watched The Shining, it did dawn on me too that my favorite horror movies, if you took the horror out, you would still care about the human characters, and you would still care about what they were going through. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't have this added element because of the horror. I was much more interested in the human drama of Haunting of Hill House because of the horror elements, but the fact that it had well-rounded characters and it spent so much time getting to know them and showing you what they're going through and showing you their ups and downs, that seeing those characters finally come together in episode 6 of this 10-episode season was really the high point of the season to me. Sure. I like the stuff that happens after that, but up to that point, I was so fascinated with revealing each character as it went, and then getting to that point where they're finally in a room together and you're seeing their present versions. This show deals with 2 different timelines. It shows them as children in the house, and then whatever happened, that they ran out of the house and something happened to their mother, and now as adults they're coming back together for another tragic reason. It just was such a carefully modulated story, and that 6th episode is such a pivot because you're finally seeing how these people act around each other, and yet you're also seeing the wounds that time can't heal, and the fact that the horror is part of that. And I think both storylines resolve pretty satisfyingly for the whole season. You get a good resolution to the kind of horror supernatural side of things, but you also get some sense of why you watch the story about these characters. And it's that 6th episode. Not only does it have that emotional content that's so strong, it also has that aspect of the way that it was filmed to feel like it's in as few uninterrupted takes as possible. I'm sure there's some making of information about how they shot this thing, but right down to something we mentioned, which is that one of the actors has a flub in one of the takes, and you get a sense that they had these shots must have lasted 10 or 15 minutes to get one of these camera moves down. And it really is like watching a play. You can see that the actors have that in them. And this flub remains in the final edit because I'm assuming they just didn't have a better take they could use. That was probably the least offensive error that they had to deal with. But, somehow it doesn't feel like a technical exercise. It feels like a very emotional story. So I was amazed by the technical excellence of this episode and this show in general, but also I was really impressed that they were able to stick the landing of these emotional arcs and these characters who they're all broken and damaged and hurting each other and hurting themselves in some way. You really come to care about them, which I do think is the key to, if you're going to make people invested in something bad happening to characters or in the horror aspect of a story. Building real characters that you can believe in and whose tragedies seem like they can't be easily fixed. Like no matter what happens in that story, you don't get a sense that it can wipe out the sadness of what's happened to some of these people, particularly the character of Luke, the addict brother who's kind of a ne'er-do-well. But and I want to throw a certain amount of appreciation just to what Timothy Hutton was able to do in the role. We'd up to this episode, which is called Two Storms, we see Henry Thomas play the younger version of that character, and when we finally really get to know this man, we know just what he's been up to. We know that there's this haunted aspect to him, and I really think that there's something very subtle and very kind of, he's almost like an impotent character in those scenes. He's trying to be there for his kids and be something for them, and they don't really need him. And there's something so sad about that. You really want to see these characters kind of find each other in the midst of all this supernatural horror that was really well done. And I know we're trying to repeat what we just talked about, but I do want to just mention that the way that the horror in this show, the offhanded nature of the ghost, the fact that a camera might move past an apparition, that you're not going to get the story of it, you're not going to hear any other development of it, you might not even see it again, but you do get a sense that certain parts of this house have these ghosts just kind of in them, and that the people that live in this house are being watched constantly. I don't know. There's so much about it that just works for me, and I think I did a better job the first time through. But you never know. This is just like the long takes in that episode. This is my own long take that didn't go as well. But Haunting of Hill House. I've watched it twice all the way through. It's the only show that I did that with. That I watched the whole season more than once. So I would definitely recommend. I know you, Ronald. You said you had technical issues with watching it.
Yeah, man, my Apple TV was acting up with the 4K settings, and I didn't see it for like a month, and then I finally just gave up after a while. Then I figured out what it was through looking at a forum.
Were there other shows that it did that too?
It was another 4K show. Was that in I think Maniac?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That and Maniac for some reason.
I liked Maniac. I didn't finish the season to that, but I liked the way that was made.
Yeah, for some reason.
I'll just piggyback on yours so that Ronald can close the show
What a surprise,
out.
Steve!
Yeah, weird, huh? But yeah, Haunting of Hill House was also my number one show of the year, and I mean we previewed it a little bit like that. We're gonna do a best of list for our favorite films of the year next week. But I don't know that I enjoyed anything more than I enjoyed this show this year. Like you said, I've watched it multiple times, and I almost feel like I've enjoyed it more each time I watch it. And the comment about the Jason Blum made that you referenced was like really kind of profound to me. Like, and I feel like I've heard it before from other directors maybe, or phrased it differently. But it really is like this show is like the perfect example of how effective a horror film can be. You know, when you can really identify that what works the best in it is the drama or the family tragedy, and like really kind of playing into the tragedy of what this family has gone through. And not knowing it, you know, like it doesn't tell you everything too soon. It tells you everything over like a nice pace as you get introduced to all these siblings and to the father and to the mother and to the neighbors and to the people that you'll learn more about as the series goes through. But it does it so well, and it kind of exposes the cracks in this family at such a nice pace, and kind of culminating in the episode that you kind of identified. But I don't know, man. I just really love the show, and I think that it really plays into all the strengths that Mike Flanagan has. And, you know, a lot of the horror films that he's put out that we've all, for the most part, enjoyed in some way have all kind of piggybacked on that idea of, like, there's a drama happening at the core of this film or of this series that you really have to buy into. And then the horror stuff just elevates it. And like you said, the hidden ghosts and, like, the cool little Easter eggs throughout the series, like it all just all makes it such a better experience, and it just increases like your enjoyment. You know, I absolutely was like geeking out over this series when it came out. I think it came out like October. Yeah. But was super stoked on it, and just like it delivered in every way and exceeded my expectations. Really, few things did that this year, and I mean like it did that series is one of a handful of things that exceeded my expectations. Honestly, with my tastes, I almost couldn't believe it. Like the first couple of episodes of that, I was going, "Oh my god!" Particularly the end of the first episode. Yes, the way that ends, I was like, "You have bought me." With this storyline, like I've played, sir. Like right, it's like because it comes around with the horror stuff. Like right when you think it's a human story and it's a drama, there's a few scenes in that season that are just so horrific. There's a scene where a kid goes down in a dumbwaiter to a basement, and that's one of the most horrifying scenes I've seen. And there's a scene where a ghost comes into a room to get a hat, and that's a pretty scary scene too. I mean. How ridiculous does that sound? I know, but it works on the level of like a lot of the stuff in like The Conjuring works. You know, like that type of, geography in a house and like moving down the hallways and in and out of rooms and who's where and what's that. And the pace of that too, just the movement of going through the house and feeling like the camera's kind of roving around, almost like it's a ghost too. You know, you get a sense of just the beings that are trapped in this house. Is it a ghost, John? Well. Maybe it is. I don't know. If a ghost is an unfinished story, or a person with business that didn't get wrapped up, or a memory that's stuck, or a loop, or whatever, that all feels like it's very connected to the human idea of what's in this story. That these are people that are kind of like ghosts in their own lives, And so this idea of having something unfinished about you, or having something that's not ready to let go, that's very connected to what the living characters in the show are doing. And so it feels like this is the perfect group of people to encounter a bunch of ghosts. And I love the way some of them are kind of in denial about what they've seen, and some of them are leaning into it and saying, "Oh my gosh, why are you acting like you didn't see it?" The idea that this brother, who was the most skeptical about what happened in the house, but he actually had some experiences that he didn't even realize were encounters with a ghost, and we see the contextual
that gets recontextualized
that's
in the
yeah.
show. I just love that aspect of it. And in my personal life, I don't really believe in the supernatural, at least not the way that people try to say that they've encountered it. But I love a well-told ghost story. And I think at the end of this show, I was sort of curious about some of the stories that might be contained in that house. But I definitely was not... I read somewhere where Mike Flanagan said he was not going to come back to those characters, the family.
Yeah,
and I feel like that feels like the smart way to go. That this season really does resolve a story of what happened to the family, but it leaves open the idea of what exactly is going on with this house and why exactly are there all these. Why does it seem to be? It's kind of like the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. It seems to sort of collect spirits, and actually very much like The Shining too. It plays around with that idea of why your spirit is stuck in a particular place, the idea of being trapped, like you would need to die in a place in order to be trapped in a place.
There, yeah.
That becomes a really crucial plot element in the show. Just this idea of where are you when you die, and what kind of forces are around you. So yeah, very thought provoking and very
I'll check
creepy.
it out now that I figured out the issue.
Yeah.
5 months later.
Now that you figured out that it's not intended to be silent.
It pissed me off so bad.
Maybe that's the next rewatch. We just watch it silent.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
You could actually pick up on quite a bit watching it silent. I mean,
That's how you experienced half of the first episode.
Yeah. So I guess it's my pick.
Yeah, this is officially the
the
best show of the year.
Yes, that's right.
Since you finished it.
I've watched it 2.5 times, maybe 3. This is one of those shows, we've kind of discussed this in the past, that should not have worked, that pulls from a property that's old as shit. And
That makes us old as shit. Don't say that.
it kind of is what it is. But it does it in a way that pays homage to, what we know about the franchise, and then brings in some new elements. Cobra Kai, the YouTube original series.
That's where we are right now. Cobra Kai, the
Cobra Kai.
YouTube original series.
YouTube original
Okay,
series.
Based
now-
off of the 1980s hit Karate Kid.
Now tell me, everybody said this was great.
It's great.
But I mean, I'm open to that. But what is it that makes it great? Like,
Well, I'll let Ronald start. This is his pick.
One of the things that it does is it's still grounded in the story. So what they do is they take footage that just didn't appear in the movie, and they show it, which is very interesting.
Very cool.
Different angles, different.
They got a hold of like masters that didn't get used in the film.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
So they do a lot of that, but they also flip the idea of who these people are kind of on their heads, because Ralph Macchio's character, he's the hero, and then this does something very different. It's not that he's a villain; it's just he's become kind of this franchised sort of person that is monetized his kick in defeating this person who is now Cobra Kai is defunct, and this man is out on the street. Johnny is not
Struggling.
Yeah, he is struggling in a way that I just haven't.
well, that's the joke that people have told in recent years about Karate Kid, is that if you view it in a different prism, it's the story
Daniel's
of
the villain,
how like Johnny had his shit worked out, and this Danny kid comes along and messes it up.
Right.
So it's like I do find, and I don't think that quite tracks with the movie. Johnny is an asshole, but it is funny to imagine, like, okay, if these are real people and they continue to have a life, if you're going to say these characters, they're not caricatures, then they do develop. And Johnny was not like out to get everybody. He wasn't like trying to destroy the town or something. He was just a kind of a guy who really didn't think really didn't want Danny around and didn't want him messing around in his life, Yeah. So yeah, it's easy. I like that idea that the show seemed to kind of proceed from that notion of, well, now that years have gone by, so it's a different story. That was the past.
And it has a good balance. I mean, John. That's the weird part about all this. Like, you kind of realize, I don't know what happened to Ralph Macchio over the years, but Johnny steals the show in a way that's a little weird. Like, he's so charismatic to the point where, like, seeing Danny on the screen sometimes with them in scenes together, like, what is this? Johnny is so much more interesting of a character. But
I think even in Karate Kid, like, Johnny is the more charismatic character.
Yeah.
Daniel's kind of like the plain ass thing. Like Mr. Miyagi's is more charismatic,
And maybe I kind of didn't pick up on that as a kid. Like,
Yeah.
you watch this
No, you're
thing,
right, though.
I'm just like, Danny is so cool because
Well, yeah, because he's a Karate Kid.
He was the Karate Kid.
But it's done in a way that's really cool, and seeing them interact with each other is really cool because the tension's still there after all these years, and it feels real. And it feels like every time Daniel's son sees Johnny sweep the leg, he's like, "What the fuck? Why is he here? I don't want him around. He's ruined my life."
Yeah.
It's really cool, and it's about a man kind of regrouping and them kind of understanding at some point that the past is a past, but there's still something there, and it's done really well. It plays homage to the show, the movie, but also has a lot of characters that are very likable, kids that are very likable. The two main characters, they keep them away from each other a lot. And so when they meet, you really feel it. You really feel it. I'm not trying to shit on Ralph Macchio.
No,
I'm just
I know.
saying,
I mean, everything I saw from this show seemed to be putting Johnny front and center. Like I wasn't even sure that Danny was as much of a character as he sounds like.
It almost felt like this guy was like, I need this, and when I get it, I'm gonna knock it out of the park, and it feels like that. But it's a really well done show. Obviously, gonna have a season 2 with a really cool surprise at the end. It's just really well done. I've watched it 3 times with Aaron. We couldn't believe how good it was. So, Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. Well, I mean, I kind of expected that show to come up tonight because it was a show that, although I didn't see it, it seemed like everyone kind of went crazy for it. And then I heard a few people that were like, "Oh, it's okay," but I was like, "Okay, for that many people to go crazy for it, it has to have something, and it can't just be the nostalgia, you know." So
I feel like it gets going off of that.
Right.
But then it really does turn a corner where like it does start to explore, not just saying like we're going to explore this from the side of Johnny.
Yeah.
You know, it's more of like a moment in life changed 2 people's lives.
Right.
And you in your mind know from the sequels what happened to Daniel and past that. But like you don't know anything else about Johnny. And like you get to see them both now in today's world, and like it touches on things about bullying and like how there's maybe, you know, a place in the world for Cobra Kai mentality and like Daniel-san, you know, and like the way he sees things.
Yeah.
And like, you know, he may be successful in so many ways in life, but he's kind of failing in other ways that he's not aware of until he maybe gets back in touch with Johnny, and like that little rivalry kind of steps back up. Yeah, it's really good, man. It's a blast. It's a really fun watch. And it's an easy watch too. So I'm excited to see what they do with the next season of it too. So yeah, I think that's right. So that's officially the best show of the year.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
I think we got some good choices here.
Yeah.
I gotta follow up on Killing Eve. We both got to do that.
Yeah.
You got to watch Haunting.
Yeah.
We'll come back together.
definitely
We'll
watch
figure
Haunting.
it out.
You know, a show that I've only seen a couple episodes of that you guys had talked about how much you liked, that I didn't make it on this list, but I do want to catch up on all the episodes of it, is Detroiters.
Oh, love that show. Rest in peace.
It's gone, yeah.
It got canceled?
It got canceled.
See, I did that thing accidentally that people do that always sounds crazy to me when people do it, which is like if you wait till a show's off so you can watch it. Do you ever talk to someone who'll say that? Like, I don't want to watch it until it's over and I know it turned out good and I heard that people liked it. And it's like, you realize you're saying, I want to see that, but I'm going to give it 6 years before I sit down to watch it.
Yeah.
But Detroiters, I just sort of accidentally didn't watch it until very recently. And I think it was after that story broke that it was canceled. But I'm not too surprised.
Hill was really good, though.
I want to check that. I heard that was good too.
What is?
Champagne Ill. It's about
Adam Pally, Sam Richardson's new show on YouTube.
Oh, no.
It is. It's crazy.
I mean, that sounds...
They're like a part of a rapper's like entourage, and the rapper dies.
He dies on a shoot of a video. He falls off a balcony.
And it's basically about them like not having that life anymore and having to return to life and really not having
those
life.
two guys in that setting sounds hilarious.
Sounds great. Yeah. I gotta watch it.
And they're like 35.
Yeah.
Trying to build
like,
this life.
What did I do with my life?
Yeah, it's really good.
You know, I know last time I talked about the comfort food of watching The Office, but I'll tell you one thing that shows you that the late seasons of The Office was not firing on all pistons is that they have Sam Richardson in.
I know.
He's like a guy that works at Jim's sports marketing company, and he's not funny. Like, they don't give him a single funny line. And I was like, how could you have that guy on set and somehow not know his cadences, his style? Because from the moment I saw him on Veep, he was stealing scenes, So it always is weird to me when you see somebody he had roles where they didn't quite know what they had, or they didn't know how to use that guy.
At that time, yeah.
But no, he's so great. His timing, his delivery is just
him
second
and Tim
to none.
and Detroiters.
Yeah.
Good, man.
Well, that was it, guys. TV SchmeeVee,
Yeah.
2018 best shows. You've got the list. Now go watch them if you haven't. If we missed any, comment on the link as we post this episode on our Facebook page and let us know if we miss any shows that you think we need to watch. I know, like I said, I got to find Killing Eve and catch up on that. But there's a couple other ones I know I need to watch. I wanted to watch Succession. Mm-hmm. I heard a lot about that when it was airing. But
I need to finish The Terror.
Yeah, The Terror.
Those
three are actually
the first three
queued
of that
up for me. Yeah. I gotta find time to watch them. But that's it. Next episode. Best films of the year, or our favorite films of the year. We'll get that going.
You know, I am actually glad we're doing that too, because we have been recording in a spotty fashion lately, and like there's movies we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
That
that's fine.
Honestly, but I'm saying that completely slipped through the net. We might be talking about them for the first time in the best movies of the year list, which I find that kind of interesting. Like I'm looking forward to some of these movies, just talking to you guys about. But
just coming out swinging with a movie.
But it's interesting. Like it really is interesting when that happens. When you realize we didn't get a chance to talk about it, and maybe you saw it after it came out on home video or something. So it's like, there might be a few surprises, right? There might be.
Yeah.
How do you feel about your best of the year list, Ronald? At this point, you think
I
it's
started
solid?
6 months ago. It's changed upwards of 50 times.
Yeah, mine too.
And then you
I keep thinking of movies that I'm like, I can't believe they all came out this year. This has been a long year.
It was,
and a lot of good movies.
yes, so many.
Yeah.
A lot of game changers.
Yeah.
Some would say. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm very curious. I was telling Steve, I think this is the first year that our lists are going to be very different. At least in the bottom.
You mean like 6 through 10?
Yeah, I think this is going to be the most all around diverse list.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
More movies to talk about.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, find us at moviesmovie.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever your choice podcast platform is. I'm hoping that we're there.
Yeah.
If we're not, let Ronald know. He can get us on there, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll figure out a way.
Figure it out. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Cobra Kai. Never say die.
That's the best show.
I think that was a Goonies. Never say die.
Yeah.
I mashed up those nostalgic things.
I don't remember that.
Don't they say never say die?
Yeah, Goonies never say die.
Duh, Ronald. Get with it, dude.
They didn't say Adrian.
That was Rocky.
And Goonies.
You're thinking of Sloth, who I think Rocky didn't fight Sloth until Rocky 5.
Yeah. We've just tied them all together.
Yeah.
It works. It works.
Rocky #2, Electric Boogaloo.
That's it. You got it. Look at that. You're right on. Again, next week we'll be back with our favorite films of the year. So until then, as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.
Just for fun, let's record that section about Haunting of Hill House again. You want to?
Third time's a charm.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I feel it more now.